Hello and welcome. Today's tutorial is on the Sanderson Sisters coaster kit. When you receive your kit, you will have 4 coaster fronts, 3 with the sister silhouettes and 1 with a quote. You'll have the matching colored backs. These backs have my logo printed on them because once I finish up this set for the tutorial, it's just going to go into my ready-made. Your backs will not have any logo printed, they'll just be plain backs. You'll also have 4 center stabilizers that have a notch cut in them, and you'll receive 4 lengths of rope. The only other thing that you need that's not included in the kit is fabric glue. I like to use Fabric Tack by Beacon. It's my favorite type of fabric glue. It works really well with cork. Any type of glue, even Elmer's glue, will be fine. This is just more to kind of keep the coaster together initially, so nothing slips as you're sewing. You'll also need a sewing machine that can do a zigzag stitch, and it is helpful if you have some sort of stiletto, or I just use the points of my scissors a lot of the time because that's handy, but something that can kind of help press the rope against the coaster. We're going to get things all set up and get started. So get everything out of your kit, get it out, and come join me. The first thing we're going to do is make our coaster sandwich. You can do all 4 at the same time. You can do 1 at a time. So make 1, sew, make another, sew. I tend to make all 4, glue all 4 at the same time, just because I have my glue out already. Today I'm just going to show you 1 at a time because it's the same for all of them. So we'll start with Winnie. You can start with whichever one you want. Sorry, I have my logo on mine, so I'm kind of seeing where I have it. I want you to turn your coaster back so the wrong side is facing up. You're going to get your glue. You don't need a lot because, again, this is just kind of keeping everything in place so it doesn't slip while sewing. Put a little bit of glue back there. And then take your stabilizer. This notch that cut it out, I want the flat side of the notch at the top. And you're going to put it kind of at the lower right hand quadrant. Maybe about 4 o'clock on your coaster if you think of it in clockwise. Give it a good press. Your coaster back is going to be a little bit bigger than your stabilizer. That will help the rope kind of sit in between the cork pieces. Go ahead and add some more glue. Mine's running a little low here. And get your cork front. And again, kind of look where that notch for your stabilizer is. And put your coaster front right on top. Line up all your edges, make sure they're straight, and give it a good press. And that's all you got to do. If you want to go ahead and do all 4 at the same time, do that, and then we'll move over to the sewing machine. At your sewing machine, you're going to want to make sure you have your sewing machine set to a zigzag stitch. I like to have my stitch width to be about 5, and then my stitch length to be shorter, to be about 2, because I want my zigzags to be closer together. Something I didn't mention earlier, you don't actually need a heavy-duty machine. This happens to be one, but you don't need one. You will, however, want to have a heavier needle. I like to use this jeans needle here. But this will help you get through the rope a little bit better. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. You're going to take your coaster sandwich and you're going to put the end of your rope right here at this notch. So this in between the 2 layers of cork. And then just place it underneath your presser foot. I'll zoom in here for you so you can see a little better. And you're going to make sure that the center of your presser foot is lined up with the edge of your cork. So as you zigzag, your needle's going to go into your cork and into your rope back and forth. So go ahead and forward stitch 4 or 5 stitches, and then I want you to back stitch, and then forward stitch and back stitch. And then pull your rope so that it wraps around your coaster, and just follow the curve of your coaster. As you sew, continue to wrap your rope around your coaster so that it's tight against the coaster. As you get back toward where you started, I like to go ahead and trim my threads so they're out of the way. And press the rope tight against where you started. At this point, if you want to take your stiletto, I take the sides of my little scissors here and just kind of hold it tight since my finger can't get under there. Just make sure not to hit any of the metal that you're using. Once you get back to the start, go ahead and back stitch again to really secure that end. Now, as you start your next round of rope, you're going to have your presser foot in this ditch between the 2 ropes. So now your needle's going to be going into the rope and into the rope, back and forth between the 2 rounds. So the first round you just sewed, and then the second round you're about to sew. And continue holding your rope just against your coaster so that it's in place as it goes under the presser foot. Now we're coming back to the starting point again, and this is where we're going to end. So once you get back to this starting point here, I'm going to make a little mark with my pen so you can see where I'm talking about. That is just past where I started my sewing. So we're going to sew till we get to that point. And then we're going to backstitch. Then you're going to front stitch and back stitch, front stitch and back stitch, because you want to get that end locked in really well. Pull your coaster off, trim up your threads, and that's it, guys. That is through step 7 of the written tutorial. At this point, go ahead and get your other coasters all sewn together, and then we'll move on to the finishing stitches at the end. What we're going to be doing next is adding a decorative stitch here at the end. If you don't want to do the stitch, that's perfectly fine. You can leave it ended just how we did with the front and back stitching in the last step. Go ahead and skip over to how to cut and fray your ends. If you want to do the decorative stitch, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding this colored portion here. I like this. I think it's a nice way to end your coaster, add just a little bit. I like to do a coordinating thread that matches my cork. I went ahead and did it on the other 3 here so you could see what I was doing. You do not have to do a coordinating thread. If you want to keep it with a neutral thread and end it, you can still see it. It still looks nice. It still ends it nice. It keeps, once you fray it, it keeps anything from continuing up the rope. Because where we ended it earlier, you can see that it stops here in the middle of the rope. We're going to be going on either side of this outer rope here. That will keep it all together as you use the coaster. Again, you don't have to do it, but it does kind of finish it off a little bit more neatly. So I'm going to switch over to my sewing machine. I've switched my thread to this orange color, and we're going to put the decorative stitching on Winnie here. What we're going to do is we're going to start our stitching about 1/2 inch up from where we ended with our neutral color thread. You can start further up if you want a larger decorative stitch. If you want a smaller one, you can kind of start where you want. 1/2 inch is a pretty good size. So I would start with that unless you just know you want something bigger. You're going to place your presser foot down so that the middle of your presser foot centers over this outer rope. If you need to, you can widen your stitch width a little bit because you're going to want to go in the ditch between the two ropes and on the outside of your rope. Also go ahead and shorten your stitch length to maybe about 1 because you want the stitches packed nice and tight. We're going to front stitch and back stitch multiple times. That will help with the overlap, but we want to get a nice coverage here. So the shorter your stitch length, the less you have to go back and forth. I really have to look around my camera here to make sure I'm where I need to be. If you're unsure about where your needle's going to hit, you can hand crank it a few times to make sure you're placed where you want. Remember, you want your needle when it's on the left side to hit in the ditch between the ropes, and when it comes over to the right, you want it to be on the outside of the edge of this last round of rope. Go ahead and front stitch until you get to the end of your stitches that you ended with, and then back stitch back to where you started, and then front stitch and back stitch until you have the coverage that you want. And then trim off any of your loose threads. There you have it. You have nice even coverage. The last thing we're going to do is finish off the tail of our coaster. And we're going to get it kind of splayed out like this. I think it looks kind of nice with these. I think it looks like the end of a broom, you know, so it goes along with our Sanderson sisters. What you're going to do, measure down about 1 inch, chop off that little bit of rope that is extra, and then you're going to take your stiletto and you're just going to pull apart the braid. If you do a lot of macrame or rope stuff, there's little combs that do this for you. I don't have one of those, so I find that just my pointy stiletto here can work just as well. And all I'm doing is I'm just, sticking it into those braids and just pulling it out. and go all the way up to where your stitches ended. If you need to flip it over to the back to make sure you get all the sides here. And these will also fluff a little more with use and get a little bit softer looking. Okay, all right, so there we have that. Zoom out a little bit there. I like to trim mine up just a little shorter, and then just to make sure all the ends are even. I measure with my thumbnail. I do about a thumbnail length. And just trim off the ends. Give it a little fluff. And there you have it. All 4 Sanderson sisters and quote coasters. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a lot of fun with these coasters and that they put a little festiveness into your holiday. Thanks for joining me.